Thank you, friends. Shabbat Shalom. Greetings to you all. I hope you all enjoyed your country birth celebrations last week and that the fireworks that went off were fun to watch and did not disturb your pets too much. My dogs go crazy when the fireworks go off, and of course they go crazy over all kinds of things anyhow. And it was not only just country birthdays. There were a lot of other birthdays. I hope that Claudia had a fantastic birthday, as well as her mother, Herta. And I'm sure Sandra had an awesome birthday, and she shares a birthday with Ringo Starr. Wow, he looks fantastic, and still puts on a pretty good show. He finally received his personal induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, an institution which once might have been a Hall of Fame, but these days I am not so sure. Anyhow, not bad for 75. And coming next week is the birthday of the great string virtuoso Martin. And I know that will be celebrated in music circles everywhere. Now this week the Lord tells Moses that his party is over. He shows him the promised land and tells him he's not getting to go in. And Moses has his final conversation with God, even though he is around for another book, and because he's Moses. He asks nothing for himself. He asks for a successor for the people. Now, no one but Moses knows any of this yet. The people don't know anything, just Moses. And as the great George Harrison Ringo Starr song says, all I got is a photograph, and I realize you're not coming back anymore. Friends, this is an odd parsha, because it begins at Numbers 25:10, partway through an incident, but it really should begin toward the end of Balak in Numbers 25:7, where Pinchas, the son of Eleazar and therefore the grandson of Aaron, kills an Israelite man and Midianite woman. Now there go those damn Midianites again, having sex in the tabernacle, which was of course the suspected red tent, the Kubah, which was not a bad late 90s novel, but a very weak TV miniseries from last year about biblical women told through the eyes of Jacob's daughter, Dinah. Now, the whole scene in the killing is a fascinating read. But what a statement by God to open this parsha, Numbers 25:11. Pinchas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, has turned back my fury from the children of Israel by his carrying out my jealousy among them, so I didn't finish the children of Israel in my jealousy. Wow, there goes that jealous, petty killing God again. He never says what the fury or jealousy was about, and the not fully speaking his mind is a bit of a problem. And God says, and it shall be his, and his seeds after him, a covenant of eternal priesthood, because he was jealous for God, and he made atonement for the children of Israel. It shall be his, eternal priesthood, but as Aaron's grandson, it was his already. So where's the reward here? Now the death of Aaron's first two sons, Nadab and Abihu, saw Eleazar elevated to become the successor to Aaron, and now his son succeeds him. And since we know the role of high priest is not earned, it is given by virtue of birth, he would have been high priest anyhow, Gadol Kohen, without this reward. So, to quote an ancient commercial, where's the beef? Friends, this is Pinchas, perhaps best in English as Pinchas, a story about killing for religious purposes and to please God. Well, I do not know. Is it a good thing to reward for killing in the name of religion? Isn't that something that seems to be happening more and more these days? Is it right for some and not for others? Commentators have been troubled by Pinchas' zeal in killing the two people. Remove the part of the story that tells you one was Israeli and one was Midianite, and simply see it as his executing two people committing a ritual crime, two non-Levites, in a sacred zone they were not allowed to be in. Now that's the path to justification, but for me, it is still not acceptable in any circumstance. Friends, there should be no killing on religious grounds. We are a universal family of believers, but just like we may speak different languages, Russian, Chinese, English, French, we also speak Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Hindu, but our hearts unite in our love and compassion and our universal belief in a higher spiritual power. It just as Numbers began with numbers, a census by tribe, it is ending in similar fashion. The 600,000 it opened with is pretty close to the 600,000 it closes with, even though there were countless plagues, rebellions, and punishments of death inflicted by God. And these are the ones who will receive the distributed promised land. You see, the aim of the first census was a military conscription for the march through the wilderness. And that function was reflected in the numbering of all males 20 years old and above. Here, on the other hand, the census is intended to lay the grounds for the division of the land. And that becomes huge. But friends, for many, this Parsha is a return to boring. But without stories to stoke the imagination, it is a chance to revisit key things. The idea of the red tent as the sanctuary. It's not a for sure translation. You see, the Hebrew kubah is unique to this text, although it has been linked with the Arabic kubah, a small tent of red leather used for cultic or for conjugal purposes, which gives rise to the English word alcove. The contention that the term refers here to the tabernacle, and hence that a violation of the Israelites' sanctum is at issue, is strained because the tabernacle, the Mishkan, is nowhere else referred to as kubah. But with the multicolored leather coverings of the tabernacle and this execution, it is read that way. But perhaps it simply was a red tent of cultic or conjugal purpose. So what could have infuriated God? Now, it's also a chance to revisit the offerings for the major holy days. The Sabbath, the new moon, Passover. And then in Numbers 29:1, that unknown holiday. And in the 7th month, on the first of the month, you shall have a holy assembly. You shall not do any active work. You shall have a day of horn blasting. By horn, of course, we mean shofar. And we know the day referred to is now celebrated as Rosh Hashanah, but we do not know what it was celebrated as then, except for when it lined up with the equinox. Then, of course, comes the Day of Atonement, Sukkot, and Shavuot. So if you weren't sure of the sacrifices for each of those days, you are reminded of them. But a major difference is, there, my friends, which is hardly noticeable, unless you have a photographic memory like Lexi Gray, or look for such things, but which suggests that perhaps this section was added in post-First Temple times. There is no mention of the tabernacle, the ark, the cherubim, or the magic 8-ball, all of which were mentioned when these laws were first mentioned, and all of which were gone by the end of the First Temple period. So perhaps it is not so surprising they are not mentioned here. And if that recap does not thrill you, well, the thrill is gone, the thrill has gone away. You know you done me wrong, and you'll be sorry someday. Goodbye to the late blues brother king, Awa Akwawale, hail and farewell. Probably what is more important is this Parsha actually shows us the beginning of women's rights by law. It takes effect, not completely, but it is a start. Unfortunately, it did not go far enough, but it gave rights to ownership, followed by rights as provided by the marriage contract, the ketubah, from around the beginning of the Common Era, and unfortunately, women's rights have been kind of on hold since then. Well, I guess everything in its time. I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore, that I know too much to go back and pretend. Well, maybe not roar, my friends, and certainly there is no going back, but you better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a-changing. The distribution system was done, and a few women spoke up and made a point about their right to inherit. And God said, Zelophehad's daughters speak right. They should inherit. Now, why should it take God saying they're right? Shouldn't we know? Did we not talk about the fact that all are created equal? Unfortunately, interpretation narrowed their rights, and God's silence ever since has not helped matters much. I myself stand by God's simple statement in Numbers 27:8. And you shall speak to the children of Israel, saying, a man who will die and not have a son, you shall pass his legacy to his daughter. Now let's take a quick look at this, my friends. It is an incredibly significant piece of biblical history. And Moses brought forward their case before the Lord, and the Lord said to Moses, saying, rightly do the daughters of Zelophehad speak. You shall surely give them a secure holding in the midst of their father's brothers, and you shall pass on their father's estate to them. Should a man die without having a son, you shall pass on his estate to his daughter. And if he has no daughter, you shall give his estate to his brothers. And if he has no brothers, you shall give his estate to his father's brothers. And if his father has no brothers, you shall give his estate to his closest kin from his clan, and he shall take possession of it. Well, it seems pretty clear to me, until you read a little further in chapter 36 about that comment here, where it says that the land should stay within a clan or tribe, which does throw a bit of a monkey wrench in what appears to be equal rights. But it also further demonstrates that when man starts to interpret, things go a little screwy. It tells us women can inherit their father's land. But now their tribe realizes that this leads to a new problem. If these women marry men from other tribes, then their land will pass by inheritance to the sons whom they will have. But tribal identification, my friends, goes by the father, not the mother. Contrary to modern Jewish belief and overall practice, identification in the Torah is always patrilineal. You see, tribal territory was not to be diminished. The allocation we read about earlier was to be forever. Now, we could, of course, praise the Bible for how far it went, or we could be critical that it did not go further. But we would do better to examine how far it went in its age, and how much this contributed to the transformation in the balance between men and women in the eras that followed. The larger point, similar to the one we talked about regarding slavery, the Bible does not forbid it and attempt to bring it to an immediate end. Rather, it provided laws of treatment of slaves, which involved granting respect, rights, and compassion for them. And I believe this eventually helped to undermine slavery as an institution. The attenuation of slavery and the increase of women's rights are two of the major developments of the past century. The Torah's laws played an early and seminal part in birthing and nurturing both of these revolutions, but they are far from finished. Now, as I said earlier, Moses has his last discussion with God and asks for a successor to lead the people, and Joshua is chosen. Moses asks, who will bring them out and who will bring them in, so the Lord's congregation won't be like sheep that don't have a shepherd. The image of a shepherd of the people has been the image of a leader since man's earliest recollections. And we see an incredibly powerful scene as Moses lay his hands on Joshua, Yeshua. And this, my friends, has been the method of rabbinic ordination, or smicha, ever since. It is a powerful moment of the transference of energy. And I'm coming up on the anniversary of my ordination, and it is always a powerful moment engraved in my memory because it is about energy. Just the words Moses really used. The need for a man who has spirit within him, either the spirit of wisdom, Ruah Hakmah, or the spirit of God, Ruah Elohim. And friends, all living flesh has an animating spirit, or life, breath in it. But only the few are endowed with a spirit of understanding or visionary presence. We need to all just tap into a little of that understanding again. Hey, rights shouldn't be fought for or given. They are a right. I'm reminded of that fantastic Whitney Houston Mariah Carey song from Prince of Egypt. Many nights we've prayed with no proof anyone could hear. In our hearts, a hopeful song we barely understood. Now we're not afraid, although we know there's much to fear. We were moving mountains long before we knew we could. There can be miracles when you believe. We need to believe again, my friends. Some will win, some will lose. Some were born to sing the blues. Oh, the movie never ends. It goes on and on and on and on. Don't stop believing. Hold on to that feeling. The world is sacred, and so is everything in it. Express your gratitude. Friends, light a candle, make a wish, celebrate your life and the lives of those you love. Share your feelings with them. Live free, be free, honor your freedom, be well, be happy, and be blessed. Share and honor the light in all who live in the light and continue to shine. Continue to send everyone you know goodwill and love. Pray for peace and freedom for everyone, and end to terror and hatred. And remember, friends, we are a community. We learn together, we celebrate each other, we love each other, we share this right together, men and women equally. And while it may not be too politically correct to say, lyrically it was brilliant in 1972, and it is just as brilliant today. Woman is the N-word of the world. Yes, she is. If you don't believe me, take a look to the one you're with. Woman is the slave of the slaves. Yes, she is. If you believe me, you better scream about it. Scream about it, my friends. We all have a right to be free. We all have a right to be. Thank you all. Love you. See y'all next time. And I do love seeing you again. And remember, your wishes do come true. Bless you all. Shabbat shalom.